You are listening to Influencers from the Conference Board.
Hello and welcome everyone to this new episode of the Influencers podcast. My name is JP Kuhlwein. I'm principal at Überbrands and the leader of the Marketing Institute here at the Conference Board. And this is our third installment of the mini-series Business and Brand Building in Times of COVID-19. I hope you're all healthy and safe wherever you are. Today, I'm excited to talk to Alison Cayne, founder and owner of Cooking School Café, event space, line of packaged sauces called Haven's Kitchen here in New York City, and at a Whole Foods near you as well, since she is in national distribution now. And we will talk about the many perspectives Alison can provide because she's a small company owner, she's a food entrepreneur, she's a direct-to-consumer seller, as well as a grocery store supplier, and the list goes on. Alison, thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. It sounds insane when you read it out loud.
And I haven't finished the list because you're also an author, a popular podcaster, and to me, the most amazing thing, particularly in these times, a mom of 5, no less. So let's start maybe with that. I mean, where's your head right now? Where are you and how are you living this crisis?
Well, thank you for having me. I am in the West Village in Manhattan right now. I am a born and bred New Yorker and very dedicated to my city. And also I feel safest when I'm here. So I'm here and I have a family of my kids ranging from age 22 to age 14 all together. In a lot of ways, it's the first time we've all been together under one roof for this amount of time in a long time because of college and school and different school calendars and things like that. So that's been interesting. And I think like a lot of us, thank God I'm healthy, and I've had some people around me not healthy and then recover. So for that, I'm super grateful. And, just, I think I've heard this compared to the stages of grief. I think that at the beginning it was, I cried kind of for the first week or so. And since then I've figured out some things, and I think done some creative thinking, and my team has been amazing, and my kids have risen to the occasion, and so I'm very blessed. I feel very lucky.
No, okay. And I have to say I hear a lot about New Yorkers moving out of town. So this was a conscious decision to stay in town, or did you feel like you had no alternative?
No, I mean, I'm privileged to have the alternative to find a place to go. For me, there's no place I'd want to be other than in my home. And I have my kitchen and, my shower, and it's those things that kind of normalize life for me. And so, we sit at the dinner table every night. We cook dinner together every night. That is the time where we're all together. And I don't know that I would be able to have that kind of comfort if I wasn't in my house. So it was a conscious choice, and it's a sunny, beautiful day here today, and there was a rainbow last night, and I think some optimism is starting to peek through.
Right, and actually this experience of making dinner and having dinner together is very much linked to kind of the original motivation to start Haven's Kitchen. Now, for some of the listeners who are not familiar with your brand, can you give us the 2-minute version? And I know it's a challenge of what it is and what you do.
Yes, I've gotten better at the 2-minute version. Basically, in 2012, I opened a recreational cooking school on West 17th Street in New York. I was in a master's program about food systems and sustainability. And it became very, very clear to me that the sort of single most powerful thing you can do as a consumer for your personal health, your family's health, environmental health, fair labor for farm workers, all across sort of all of the different pieces of our food system, is to cook more from scratch. That doesn't have to mean that you make every piece of bread that you consume, but if Americans decided to cook more often, once or twice a week more than ordering in or going out, there'd be a lot of productive sort of health and other good consequences from that. Obviously, things are interesting right now because everyone is cooking right now. But the goal really was to get people reconnected, not with recipes, but with a new mindset that, cooking doesn't have to be a chore. It can be joyful. It can be calming. It can be centering. You can feel confident doing it. And that was why I opened the cooking school. And with the cooking school came a little cafe in front and some private event space where we do a lot of brand activations and weddings and things like that to really sort of pay the rent, essentially. And then in 2018, we launched a line of fresh sauces in pouches for grocery stores, continuing on that mission of making cooking more convenient, more delicious, giving you more of a joyful feeling when you do it. They're beautiful, fresh, clean label sauces that are in bold, bright colors in squeezy pouches. They make you feel sort of like you're finger painting, all under this sort of mission of really getting people to feel good about cooking. And that's what my cookbook is about. And, I think going back to your question, it's the thing that has always given me peace and happiness. And there were so many people that felt the opposite about cooking. And I just really wanted to change that for as many people as I possibly could.
Right. I mean, it sounds in so many ways that you're in the eye of the storm from a positive and a negative side.
Yeah.
So let's start first with, I guess, the original impact, because a lot of people are interested in that and want to kind of feel like they're not the only ones. How did this crisis strike you? I mean, you have a physical location, I guess. At one point, you just had to close down and so on.
Yeah. I mean, my brain is almost in like split screen in a way. And you're right. That was a really poignant way to phrase it. I actually closed the cooking school the week before things got really hairy here, before we were told to. And I did that because I had, there were a lot of businesses at that point making it optional for their staff to come in. And that, to me, is not great leadership. Making something optional puts the responsibility on someone to take one for the team, or not feel great but show up anyway, or be nervous that there would be, maybe people wouldn't like them as much if they didn't show up. I kind of liken it to, I learned very early in life, when you have a dinner party, people like to have place cards.
Right.
It
Right.
makes them feel like, okay, now, 'cause instead of that confusion of where should I sit, and I don't know, and do I put myself over here, and that kind of feeling. So to me, it was very clear that this was going to be a bigger problem, and I didn't want anybody on my team feeling uncomfortable or unsafe having to come to work, even if I was saying that they didn't have to come. That was a tough decision. The following week we went and cleaned out the walk-in and all of the food. It's sad. We had a lot of tears, just because it is such a center of the community, and it's such a special sort of community place. But I was very fortunate because I have incredible senior leadership for the cooking school. And I sort of presented everyone with an option of, can you, as the fill in the blank chef or head teacher or, event salesperson, can you go down to 20 hours a week at $20 an hour? And that way we can continue to keep all of the prep cooks and all of the porters and all of the hourly workers at least on our health care, because they're getting 20 hours a week. even though they're not working. And everyone did.
Wow.
So my team was able to preserve, people are still on partial unemployment, but they are all still on the healthcare, which is everyone's sort of main priority. And, we can talk about it when we're talking about sort of other things we're doing. I've written my landlord a letter sort of proposing somewhat of a creative, I think, solution to rent. We are a very events driven business. I don't know, even when we are able to go back into that building, how people are going to feel about events and weddings and cooking classes. So it's going to be a ramp up. So that part of my brain has been very focused on sort of triage a little bit. We launched virtual classes. It took us about a week to figure it out, but we're doing classes over Zoom and people are loving them. So there's been some fun creative thought there, but mostly it's been sort of preserving. The sauce business is this other sort of side of my brain, which is, a consumer packaged goods company that is in the middle of, being launched in 500 Whole Foods across the country. I think we're something like 350%, over where we were last year at this time, and 100 something percent over, January, which was our highest month ever. So it's very much trying to figure out how to grow this. We are a product that helps people cook more easily and more deliciously at home. A better for you pantry staple. There is no time for our product that could be better than, what's about to happen sort of from a recession perspective. So that part of my brain is less focused on sort of like triage and more focused on opportunity and creativity and, making kind of the most out of, and not in an opportunistic way, but, in a growing my business way.
So in a happy way, that kind of increasing portfolio that probably is a challenge at times is now a good thing, because this diversification helps you to equal out and balance out things a bit. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I launched the sauces was because my students couldn't find anything like them because they didn't exist. And frankly, the other part was diversification. I mean, even before, without the drama of, the horrors of a pandemic, brick and mortar hospitality businesses in New York City are horrible businesses. They're really exhausting and challenging and a lot of labor, and the rent is crazy. And, the small businesses in New York City are already challenged, let alone the food industry. It's just so, part of, I knew at some point that I would want to transition to CPG, because I didn't want to open more brick and mortars, and I don't think that there's really a market for more of Haven's Kitchens and, in other places. Really, it wasn't scalable.
Right.
And if I had a mission that was getting more people to enjoy cooking, and I wasn't going to open more places, it seemed very clear that this product, was not only a good idea from that perspective, but yeah, I mean, I was very much thinking about diversifying when I
Right.
launched it.
Now,
Again, I launched into a very challenging business. It wasn't
Right.
like another easy one,
Right.
but different challenges.
To round out the sauces part, in theory, it's great to be in that business right now. People are cooking at home like never before.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is a lot of people discover that they don't cook that well, but they wish they could. So your
Mm-hmm.
product is right there to help. On the other hand, we hear about a lot of challenges with supply chain when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to grocery, which with product being triaged in terms of essentials, and maybe that roll of Charmin toilet paper goes before your sauces.
Yes.
Plus you need to be refrigerated. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell us just a little bit, without going into too much technical detail, how much
Yep.
of a challenge is that or not right now?
So we were just talking about this as a team. So we've had zero challenge with that. from, over the last 5 weeks. We
Okay.
have part of, going back all the way to sort of the beginning of the supply chain a little bit. One of the, I think, really critical sort of business decisions I made early on was to partner with a co-packer who invested in the business. And they are the largest independent sauce packaging company, in the country. And they would be normally, under normal circumstances, way too big and way too grown up for my little sauce business. But in exchange for equity in the company, they built me a dedicated line, and they gave me, sort of a fighting chance at a typically very, low margin business. So they are super professional. They've cross-trained their team incredibly well. They put in safety precautions, way ahead of time. There's been no disruption from a production perspective. Then moving on to getting onto trucks. For a lot of people I'm, friendly with in this world, they're choosing, their top 2 SKUs. They're only producing those. They're not producing other SKUs. There is, some discussion about prioritizing what goes on the trucks. In refrigerated trucks, we're not competing with rice and toilet paper.
Right.
So to some extent, all of the things going on these refrigerated trucks are, they're staples in a way, but they're also, they're not, hunker down in a bunker for 6 years staples.
Gotcha.
And, there's a lot of sort of shifting going on because if you recall, there's just a ton of refrigerated trucks out there that have been servicing restaurants.
Right.
And so they are not doing that right now. So at the end of the day, I think all of these things come down to your relationships. Our relationships with Whole Foods is fantastic, and it was important to them that we were on trucks getting to 500 stores in the month of April, and they have made good on that, and we're well on our way to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So while we're talking positive, it feels like we're riding the wave. I want to ride it a little bit longer.
Yeah. Before we get into the
exactly,
crap
because
storm.
you said hunker down, but before we go there, do you even see opportunities to boost the business even beyond kind of what is naturally now in your favor? Meaning, I heard other businesses saying, hey, you know what? All of a sudden, advertising rates on Facebook have just fallen like crazy. So opportunistically, I'm now advertising like like a grown-up, Are you jumping on opportunities like that?
Yeah, I mean, very much. I'll give you an example. I mean, I didn't think of it necessarily at the time as jumping on an opportunity, but in our budget for 2020, we had 2,000 in-store demos planned,
Right.
with a person behind a table and some sauce and saying, hi, do you want to try some sauce? It's how we grew the business from Manhattan to the whole Northeast, and why Whole Foods really, I think those velocities and that movement of sauce was part of their decision to make us a national brand. But, we are not doing demos, and we assume that we won't be doing demos for some time. So what we didn't have in our budget for 2020 was digital marketing. We've never really done any ads on Facebook or Instagram. We've never done dedicated landing pages on our website. We've never targeted, people who've been to a Wegmans in the past 30 days or whatever it is. So we took half of that budget and we met a few different agencies. We chose one, and tomorrow, we're going over all of the creative, and we're launching, next week.
How exciting.
So I'm excited. I think this is a time when, and I feel like a lot of business founders are talking about this. There are things that I have kind of kicked the can on a little bit. My priorities were, let's just get into those stores, let's do the demos, then we can, think about digital marketing in 2021. Well, now it's time to think about it now. And I think there's a mindset of, instead of sort of, bemoaning the fact that we can't do demos, okay, well, what can we do? How do we reach people? And in some cases, those new ways of reaching people are going to be more effective, and when you say doing things like a grown-up, there are going to be opportunities for us that we wouldn't have had as a smaller emerging brand that we will now.
Right.
And we just have to be, you have to be in the brain set, kind of in that mind frame to be able to see them and evaluate them, because it's not reactive. It's not just like, okay, now we're going to just do this completely different thing. I'm not going to now completely change my whole business model and be a direct to consumer model.
Right.
That doesn't make sense for my product. But, I am going to be responding to things that are happening around me and trying to figure out how to sort of maximize my opportunities and maybe get to do some things that I wasn't going to get the chance to do.
Right, right. A good opportunity here for a plug, actually. In part 2 of this series, I talked to Dan Feetsum, who's a creative and talks about this from a creative / advertising agency perspective about what are the best ways of communicating in this crisis. I don't want to go into that, but listeners certainly can if they listen to that episode. Just one thing, which is in that episode, we talk about, worst of all, would be if you look like you're profiteering from the situation. Right. I don't think that would be a risk in your case. On the other hand, you guaranteeing kind of the health insurance of your workers, there are positive statements that you could make, which the big guys are making. Have you considered any of that? Or at this point, it's really just better to talk about who am I, what am I, and where can you buy me? Yeah. And all of these other things will kind of fall in place, or people can Google if they need to get more information, etc.
Yeah, I try to be a, say a little, do a lot person.
Yeah.
I also I'm a little, I don't like to open myself up, really. I feel like there's going to be someone who's going to find fault with something or bring something up that was totally taken out of context, someone who left 5 years ago or, something like that. So I don't necessarily need to broadcast that.
Right.
I, on the other hand, when it comes to sauces, I think you're right. We do have to be careful. We're not going to be like, now that you're, in quarantine, cook more. We're not going to position it that way necessarily. But we are going to sort of shift our tone a little bit from, wouldn't it be fun to cook at home a little more often, to, okay, how do you make it better?
Right.
And
right. That makes sense.
It's nuanced, but, yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of like, I feel like we've all gotten enough emails from businesses saying how we're responding to COVID. Like, I think it's time to just talk about the attributes of the product, help people use it, as well as they can, and try to connect with our community by giving them this and, making ourselves accessible for, pantry help and recipe advice and things like that.
Amen. I wonder though about your direct-to-consumer sales. I thought you sold directly through your website. Is that currently on hold? Did I get that right from your website?
Yes. So, we were trying to see before I set up any sort of, because fresh direct-to-consumer is really hard. Your basket as a consumer needs to be big enough to pay for the shipping, essentially, and the marketing around a D2C business. And that means you would have to buy, at least 6 pouches of sauce and, spend $40, $50 on every visit, which is just not really the way that consumers want to be buying sauce. They want to be getting, we're looking into, and we're on a couple of different like e-commerce platforms where there are stores that do it that way, and we're part of that. But buying directly from us, it's different than buying a sweatshirt or doing a subscription to, a shampoo company.
So that was not directly linked to the COVID incident.
Well, in a way it was, because what we were doing is we're like, okay, let's just do a little experiment. Let's put the sauces on our website at this price point, and you can only buy a case at a time. And let's just see, like kind of I do everything else, how many people actually come to the website and want to buy sauce this way. And then if it turns out to be that there are actually a lot of people, then we'll start investing in other ways that are a little bit more reasonable and more sustainable. Because as we're pulling them out of the cold walk-in and packaging them and, writing a little note, that's not really a scalable process.
Right.
So we were doing that, but you're right, because the cooking school closed, we're no longer able to do that.
Understand.
It wasn't really a channel that was, we're not selling a lot of sauce that
Gotcha.
way.
So we've arrived at the cooking school, and for all those listeners who say, wow, these people are blessed, they're actually seeing growth and opportunity in this crisis, let's talk about the other side of your schizophrenic entrepreneur self. The cooking school. So you talked already, you use words like hunker down, which are typical right now, preserve cash, however, try to do the right thing as far as your employees go. Can you talk to us a little bit about who do you encounter as allies, helpers, useful resources, and who's in the way right now, at least from your experience?
Right. Anyone who's quote unquote in the way, I really have a lot of empathy for, honestly, because I feel like they just got slammed with all of these things that they had no idea they were doing or supposed to do 3 weeks ago. So I don't really think of anyone as in the way. I think who's been a real helper for me is my bookkeeper and my accountant. We've spent, we've spent a lot of time.
Who would have known?
I mean, again, it goes back to relationships. These women have been a part of my business for 8 years, and we've been, it's been a good relationship. And so when it came down to applying for, the PPP loan, it was, we did it together. You really need to have your ducks in a row for these things. You need to know your numbers, and you need to know how you're going to be spending it and know what that looks like. And when it came down to sort of asking my landlord, and we can talk about that, because the issue for me isn't so much, yes, of course there's right now, which is traumatic and dramatic. And, I feel like we got over sort of one hump. But how long can that last? I don't have any income into that business. So, preserving people's hours is still going into, essentially money that we don't really have.
Right.
We have a line of credit, and I still need to pay that line of credit back. So it's, at some point when things sort of stabilize-ish, again, my business isn't going to be what it was 3 months ago. It's probably going to take, months to years to catching back up, especially if people aren't allowed to be in a room with more than 20 people, or if people are scared of being in a cooking class or a wedding.
Do you have investors? Do you have investors in that part of the business?
Don't. No, that's just me.
Right.
So, the question is really going to be, what do I think? And again, this is based on just guessing, based on my history, based on the clues that I'm getting from other countries and back to work plans and things like that. What do I think I can reasonably expect to do in sales for the next, once we are allowed to legally open those doors for, let's say, the next 18 months. And based on that, can I keep this team in place? Can I pay rent? That's going to be the big question. And I don't know.
Let's talk about ramping up again, but we'll do that after a short break. So everyone will see you on the other side when we continue our conversation.
Can you, your team, or your company benefit from insights such as the ones provided in this podcast? They are immediately available when you join the Conference Board, a membership-based think tank that delivers trusted insights for what's ahead. Reaching across industries and geographies, we bring together our noted experts, senior executives from the world's largest companies, and nonpartisan practical research to help you address your most important business issues. Our membership packages are tailored to your organization's unique needs and budget. To learn more about our offerings, go to www.conferenceboard.org and click Join on the top bar to connect with one of our product specialists.
All right, I'm back. Welcome back to our conversation with Alison Cayne, founder extraordinaire of a lot of things called Haven's Kitchen. Alison, you said you don't quite know where the physical location, the cooking school, cafe, etc., where that is going. A lot of it has to do with how long this crisis lasts, if and how consumer behaviors change.
Right.
A lot of questions. So between the famous V-shaped, U-shaped, L-shaped, and so on, how are you thinking about it? Do you draw little shapes and make business plans, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I have sort of, I'm hoping it's not the L. I think that there are a couple of different scenarios. We are a small events venue. We've already heard from many couples who were supposed to get married in Italy this summer who want to have a small ceremony when they can in the fall. There's definitely one sort of thought that when people can celebrate again, they will be very happy to be back together and host reunions and team dinners and celebrate life and celebrate love. And that is exactly what we do. So I think that the personal events side could definitely really ramp up quickly depending on, what sort of the safety, and sort of that piece of it is. The corporate side, the events in the corporate world, I think are definitely going to slow down. I mean, I think it's without question there's going to be a recession, and the first thing that companies give up is, sort of that event kind of, team building or have a party when you launch a new product thing. So we are fully braced for that. And, you build these different scenarios and you pick the worst one and you send it to your landlord and you hope that he's kind of going to partner with you on something. I mean, that's kind of how I've gone. And I'm hoping that if things don't ramp up and there are team members that, I have to let go, then I'm able to do so with a nice severance and, a big hug, and that they are on to bigger and brighter things. There's really only so much you can do, not knowing anything about the future. But I think that you can be smart about, mitigating risk. And I think you can be thoughtful about, the way that you do things. Little things mean a lot to people. And I think that there's a difference between laying someone off in one way and laying someone off in another way.
Right. And it seems like it's a chain, because I hear, even the big chains, by the way, H&M in Europe, for example, I know as a fact, is not paying its landlords.
Right.
Then the landlords are turning around, going to their bank and say, hey, the mortgage, I won't be able to pay it. Then the banks turn around to the governments. Talking about that, how confident do you feel that the US as a total, as an economy, as a country, can deal with that? Do you feel like it's already well organized, or will get this, the act together, or, something will change? You applied for PPP. How did that
Yeah.
go?
It went okay. I mean, again, I'm going to probably get boring to people. I have a great relationship with our bank branch manager because he works around the corner and comes in for coffee and cookies, 3 times a week.
That's an
So
unfair competitive advantage,
it
of
is. I
course.
mean, but you know
Yes.
what? It really, I mean, JP, you can attest. It goes back to relationships. It's
Yes.
the
Yes.
relationships with your service providers, and the people they're all, everybody that you encounter in business, full stop, is a partner. And if you look at them as an impediment or a roadblock or an adversary, they will become that. And if you look at them as someone who's just trying to do their job and they're trying to help you, and there's nothing personal, you're just in line with a lot of other people, then that goes a long way. So, I have a very good relationship with Justin, and I'm able to, he actually last week very politely emailed me back and said, the more time I spend sort of responding to you, the less time I actually have to go through these loans.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I got it. Sorry, and like didn't bug him for a few days. But the process was clunky. How could it not be? I mean, the sheer magnitude of it. I mean, the banks didn't know that this was going to be happening, and they had to figure it out. And the people at the banks were just, and imagine all of the people whose lives and businesses are at risk and who aren't sure. I mean, the fear of, and it's all coming at them. So
Right.
it wasn't an easy process. It was a very unpleasant process in a lot of ways. And I still, I was quoted in a Washington Post article last week because my accountant was interviewed, and I've been carrying my phone around with me, almost like a baby, just, in the shower, wait, did I hear it? And, if I'm doing like a Zoom yoga class, like, wait, was that my phone? Because I'm kind of expecting the bank to call all the time. I don't even know if they're going to call, now they could just be like putting money in your account. You don't know. We don't know. But I will say that, I'm, to the extent that I have any more understanding of the process or knowledge of the process or comfort with the process, it's because I have these relationships, that I've fostered over almost a decade.
Right. Right. So it's very personal. It's not the system. And if
Right.
it's the system, it's kind of really we're all learning together here, trying to find our way through.
Yep.
I had a question planned for the end in terms of, wow, this was so depressing. Let's try and find something positive. But actually, I found a lot of positive things. The one question I had for you is, I was thinking about you a lot when I saw a feature about Germany, my home country, and a little guy who has a restaurant in a village, and obviously his business crashed to zero.
Yeah.
He was sitting on a ton of vegetables like you did. And he had all his farmer suppliers who were sitting on a ton of chicken and stuff. And literally, basically, they all pulled together, and he's making bouillon and chicken soup now that he's sending around. And he says it's so popular. He's thinking about making this a permanent business.
Right.
Could you imagine, or might you even already be tinkering around with transforming some of your space into a virtual cooking school, into a production studio that does things relating to cooking, nutrition, sauces, God knows what?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely thinking about all sorts of things. Going back to sort of reacting versus responding, I don't want to change my entire business because of this. I think that there will be things that we can do and tighten up for sure. And I think there will be some opportunities that come out of this. We've been, our soups are incredibly popular. How do we make it so that they're, easier for pickup or, takeout or whatever it is? Or, can we one thing we're doing now is we're partnering with an online food, kind of e-commerce grocery called Farm to People. And when you register for a Haven's Kitchen virtual cooking class, you get a code and you get into Farm to People, and they send you the ingredients so that you have all of the ingredients pre-picked by us, straight from them, ready for your class. There's real moments in there that you can see there being real opportunities. But, I don't think that the cooking school is going to completely, I think that, again, it comes down to the rent. I don't know that the cooking school is structured in a way or built out in a way that it can really maximize on those things as its primary business. I think the cooking school is primarily, an event space and a place for people to gather, and retrofitting it to sort of be something else isn't necessarily the way that I'm thinking. That being said, the plan was always that the CPG company would eventually be bigger than the brick and mortar, and the brick and mortar would be sort of a marketing experiential sort of place for the CPG company.
Right.
And that could just happen sooner rather than later, depending on the rent.
Well, I wish you that, Alison. I think I wish all of us that the brick and mortar will survive, though, because we all want to get together again and do stuff together. And the cooking school is as great a place as others, to do just that.
It really is.
Thanks a lot for these insights, really, as a brand, as an entrepreneur, as a human. I always love talking to you. You have great ideas and great insights there. If people want to check out Haven's Kitchen, if people want to sign up for your podcast, what's the easiest way to find all the connections?
Great. So I think the easiest, quickest thing is to go on our Instagram. It's just at Haven's Kitchen. And in the profile is a link tree. Basically, you can link to my podcast, my cookbook. You can sign up for a class.
Wonderful.
You can, do everything Haven's Kitchen through Instagram. Is probably the quickest, best way.
Oh, wow. And can people already optimistically sign up for coupons now to go to a cooking class?
Absolutely. We have a ton of people that are buying gift certificates that can be used either, on cooking classes or once we open the cafe. Again, the community's been amazing, and they're really trying to be as supportive as they can.
Because that's another great way for people in general in their community to kind of help all these shops out, buying gift cards, basically advanced purchasing for when things get better, because these people need cash right now to survive.
Exactly. Yep.
So thanks again, Alison. And you, dear listener, you can always tune back in. If you like this discussion, then don't be shy. Give us comments, ratings, subscribe, pass it on to your neighbors. The spiel. And consider all the other offerings by the Conference Board. You can find that at conference-board.org/podcasts. We don't want to make it easy or too easy for you. And with that, thanks again, Alison. And let's follow up on this maybe in 4 or 6 months or so and see how things have worked out.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for having me, JP. It's always nice talking to you.
Thanks for your time. Bye.
Bye.
This has been Influencers from the Conference Board.